All right, welcome back. Another episode of the Anthony Wherley's podcast. The last one we shot a couple weeks ago. My friend Jerry is here again today. Gosh, the response. We talked about it before we did it. We knew people would be interested, obviously. With social media, we were just talking about it a second ago. Social media gives us an opportunity to reach people in a positive way and a negative way as well, but a positive way. We both shared it. And, as of last night, it had been listened to 195 times, which you might think, well, that's not that much. Trust me, that's a lot. And I think what's made it good. Well, first, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me again. And thanks for twisting my arm and making me do that last time, because it's been a great 2 weeks since then. I've reconnected with so many people. So many people have reached out to me, former players and coaches, and now our coaching staff's getting together. Our old coaching staff's going to get together, at Buffalo Wild Wings and share stories, and people are having listening parties, podcast parties, and they're asking for a part 2 because there's so many things that I forgot or screwed up that I don't know if it needs a part 2, but I've learned a lot since then.
Well, I think that's what that's what's neat about it. And if you're and the funny thing is and we've talked to you, and I've talked probably more in the last 2 weeks than maybe we usually talk, but we've talked a lot more in the last 2 weeks. And I mentioned to you that, people tell me, I've had people say, you need to write a book and I need to do this and this. And then in your head, you're like, well, there's probably people that think, who do you think it's not, those people aren't listening to this, and they didn't listen to the other, and they're not going to.
Yeah.
And so if you are listening to it, we want you to know we really do appreciate that you are, and we know that we're not doing this because we think we have some kind of infinite wisdom and people should listen to us. This is kind of the conversations that we would have had riding in a truck to a field at 5:30 in the morning in the middle of July. And maybe, and I know from your own experience off the last one and my experience for things I've done in the past, it matters to people. Like I don't know if they need it to survive, but maybe it's the charge they need to get through the day or something that they're dealing with, or it's just to remind them of a memory that meant the world to them and how they could then maybe apply it. That was, I think, the text that you sent me that meant the most, at least to me. It's different for you because the people that you are hearing from are people that you've already got a relationship with. You love those people already.
Right.
When you sent me the one where it was like applying it to their life and make it, maybe didn't think of it that way in the moment because they were a kid, that mattered. That's what we're supposed to do. And I said it before you and I started the last one. I think that's what we've spent our lives doing, is relating those things to kids and to hopefully maybe some adults that need it too.
Yeah. It's really been nice to have your feelings justified, because sometimes coaching can be lonely and you think that maybe you're the only person that feels so strongly about this or it affected in such a way. It's such an interesting story. And it's just told from my point of view, right?
Yeah.
And to hear it from the point of view of an 8-year-old who's listening to it on the radio in his grandparents' car, to another coach who's up in the booth, which is a much different point of view from the sideline, to a player that's on the field, and then to hear from a player who was on the sideline, to hear from a fan, to hear from another coach just looks at it from a completely different angle. It would be interesting to hear, just to hear that same story from the 10 different perspectives. And it's why we have 4 gospels about the story of Jesus, because you see different angles from the story from different people. Yeah. You get different, they're just, it's interesting. I'll save that for another day, but
because I think, and it's so, the thing about you and I is, I know it happens to you because it happens to me. You're talking and something pops into my head and makes me think of this. And then that's why we literally could talk for 3.5 hours. I truly believe that. We won't do that to you, even though you could pause it. But like what just popped into my head before we get going with mine was when you said that, it's like, because I know you've had this situation too, as a teacher, as an administrator, as a coach. I'll have kids who are not kids anymore see me and they're like, this one time you told me, and you don't remember what you said, but I know for sure I meant it because I wouldn't have lied to that person. And they're like, yeah, I hang on to that. And that's helped me get through this, that, and the other thing. And you're glad that you're able to do that. And here and the other thing too, is there's people that we grew up with that probably thought you two ding dongs have that much influence on people or you, I mean, and I, like when we grew up, we weren't, maybe we weren't, we always made the best decisions or we did this, that, or the other thing. But we are at that place in our life right now where we both take that infinitely seriously and try to make a difference and whatever. So, the theme of the podcast that we did already about the Oregon State playoff football game, we titled it different. I threw people off. We put part 1. There may be a part 2, but that's not necessarily what I meant when I put that on there. My favorite part of that story was drawing plays up in the dirt, and the theme of that, if I was to give it a theme, and we kind of put a bow on it at the end by saying, life sometimes doesn't go out how you planned, and sometimes you got to draw it up in the dirt to get what you want. And, you said it in terms of like not breaking the rules, meaning, going against right and wrong, but like, okay, I think I got to go do it this way. Well, maybe I'm going to have to do it enough. Maybe I'm going to have to change a little bit. Not my values, but change what I'm doing.
Yep.
And that's what the theme of that one was. Well, I knew when you were going to tell that story, I was like trying to think of one of my own that would fit that. And the story we're going to tell now, or the story we're going to talk about now, would be my version of that in a lot of ways. And it happened. So the title of this one is "It Was Fun While It Lasted."
And so for somebody that don't know, that maybe are listening from where I'm from or where we grew up, that don't know what Tony does or what he has done, Tony's coached basketball for, 30 years now.
Yeah, 30
at
plus.
Least 30 plus.
Started when I was 20.
He's been everything from a head boys varsity basketball coach to a 5th and 6th grade boys coach, junior high girls assistant. And at this time, when you're telling this story, you're an assistant.
I'm the JV coach.
You're the JV coach under Coach Giesler at Illini Central.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So much like with yours, to set it up, and if you're listening to it from here, from Illini Central, you kind of know already, but to set it up in case other people are listening to it, the season that started in 2011, the 2011-2012 season, we had some talent. We had some good kids. We had 3 seniors. One of them started. 2 of them came off of the bench. One of them didn't play very much at all, but 3 of the best guys you'd want to be around. And our juniors were pretty talented. They had won a state championship when they were in the 7th grade. And so the expectations for that group were kind of high. And we started off their junior year. Coach Giesler decided when they were freshmen to get into a really tough Thanksgiving tournament over at Canton, Chicago Marshall, Peoria Emmanuel, Canton, and Macomb at the time.
Wow. Yeah.
So you were starting 4 games that you were pretty much sure you weren't going to win. You might beat Macomb, you might beat Canton, but probably not. And you're not going to beat Manual, and you're not going to beat Chicago Marshall.
All right. Take just a second. Illini Central doesn't have football.
Yeah,
so you're a basketball school, and you have some other sports, but you would consider your school a basketball school.
Well, you and I both went to a school that had football. We weren't a football school, but we went to a school that had football. And you knew Friday night in September and October.
Yeah.
In beginning of November? I don't even remember.
No,
not at all.
About Halloween's when it
stops. Which was one of those things I wanted to
Unless you make the playoffs.
Right, which then...
which we didn't.
One time.
We were never going to be nicknamed Mr. November.
And then, which always brings up the fact that you told me something that I love that I wanted to mention from the last one. When you've told me before that you wanted to be practicing when had to turn the lights on to practice.
Yeah,
that's one of those things that someone that doesn't know anything about football. I mean, with basketball, the lights are always on because you're in a gym. But football, time changes. Now we got to practice, now we got to turn the lights on to practice.
We got to turn the lights on the football field, and we got to get off the practice field because the sun's going down.
Right.
Yeah, and if you've never made it that far in the playoffs, you don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I remember when you said that to me, it was just like, Oh yeah, that's crazy.
It was a switch that we hit every year for like 7, 8 years in a row, and it's crazy.
When you told me that's like a chills thing. You're like, as a coach, you're like, that's a talking point. So anyway, yes, basketball school. When I got here coaching middle school boys, I was the 8th grade boys coach, and we had one of the first week of the season, we had a Tuesday night game and a Friday night game. A Friday night middle school boys basketball game, like during football season, like towards the end of football season. And I remember saying to someone like, no one's coming to this game. It's a Friday night. I knew we didn't have football. It wasn't silly, but I'm like, who comes to a middle school boys basketball game on a Friday night? Well, in Easton, you come out of the locker room and you didn't come straight into the gym. You had to walk a little bit and turn a corner, and then you're in there, and it's packed. Like, I was like, oh, I'm not VIT anymore, and I'm not running down our home.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
Right. I'll say it this way. I love Illini Central with all my heart, but VIT is my home. So if I say home, that's what I mean. I don't Mason City. I've raised my kids here, but VIT is my home. Mason City, Illini Central, Easton and San Jose. I love them. So anyway, yes.
So I had you back up, but you were to the tournament you start the year with,
right?
And there's a bunch of great teams there.
Yeah, we've had a really rough year though. Like we start off that, and we win 3 games. We're 3-9, and those of you listening know it was bad, and we had not played well at all. And I look back on Max Preps. If you've never been on Max Preps, it's the best time waster to go back, because I think it goes all the way back to 2006. So anyway, we're not very good. We haven't had a very good season. We've only won 3 games right after Christmas. After Christmas, we play a really bad game on a Friday night. I'm going to try to condense some of this just to build to where we're at. But right after the first of the year, we've lost on a Tuesday night in a real tough, heartbreaking game in overtime. That pushed us to 3-8. We play at Williamsville on a Friday night. We lose that game bad, played bad. I've seen this. I looked back and saw the stats one time. It was a terrible game. And, I know that there were people in the crowd after that game or at the end of that game were ready to maybe go get Coach Giesler fired, trying to see what test the water, stick your toe in the water, and the idea of getting rid of a coach.
See if they get some people to go to a board meeting.
Yeah, that would, realize that maybe it was time for a change. And I remember being in that locker room after the game, and Coach Giesler had mentioned to the boys, he's like, maybe I need to resign. Maybe I need to go home this weekend and write a resignation letter and just be done. And I was telling you this, the girls played there this year. I was sitting in the shower in the back corner of the locker room, and I'm pleading with these kids that I've taught since they were 6th graders and 7th graders that I have this, amazing relationship with. I'm almost in tears. I'm like, guys, we got to wake up. Like, what are we doing? So the next day we had to get up and go to Centralia, which is 3 hours from here. And we got to go down there with these guys. Everybody's ready to strangle one another. Everybody's ready to, the last thing you want to do is get on a bus early and ride. Luckily, the cheerleaders didn't go. I love the cheerleaders and the cheerleading sponsor, but we needed to just be really not around each other. But anyway, we go to Centralia together, and it was a really great day. The story in amongst itself, but it was a great bonding day. And we still got beat. So we were 3-10. So from that point at 3-10, we lose 2 games from then until the end of the year, till the regional starts. And one of those games was against Sangamon Valley, which is the game I want to talk about. Almost to Plains. Plains is really good. And from what I've looked, they probably won. Plains is very good. And they probably won the conference that year from what I looked at. And we've really turned it around. Again, we're not playing, we're playing competitions more along our lines, and we're not, we're playing together, and things are really, really good. And so we win the regional here. It was here in Mason City. We're on our way to the sectional. So that's the game we're going to talk about. So, we're going to go play Sangamon Valley in Ridgeview, Colfax. We had played Sangamon Valley. The last 4 times we played them, they had beaten us. And they have 2 senior stars, all staters. Great. One of the the best player, all-state baseball, if I remember right, all-state basketball, and all-state track too. Like just a great athlete, left-handed kid that could just shoot the lights out. And what I tell you, we lost to him by 27 one year. We lost to him by a pick and a layup in an overtime game. We lost to them by 3 in a regional the year before. I mean, it just didn't look like they were the kind of team that we were going to be able to beat. I mean, you could have left Mason City that night thinking that. The thumbnail I put on this, the picture when you clicked on it, the Cougar head was in the seat next to me. Rhonda and I are in the seat on the left, and the box with the Cougar head is on the right. And I just remember, on the way over there, I tried to convince myself that we could win this game. But there's that little bit of doubt in your head and your heart. Like, I don't know. This team's really good, and they've beaten us a number of times in a row. I don't know.
And at this point, you've turned the season around and you've won the regional. Is that enough? I mean, could you have been satisfied?
Well, it's funny you say that, because last Friday night, not last night, but a week ago, I was telling some of the story to a kid that I love to death, I'm really close to. I told him that the night we won the regional, I tweeted out, or I put on Facebook, one word. I put finally, because I had never won a regional in my entire life. Mm-hmm. I had never been a part of a regional championship ever. We played for the 8th grade regional championship my 8th grade year and got beat. I had coached in at least one regional championship game that I helped us lose by being bullheaded and by not drawing plays up in the dirt. And, I had never been a part of it. And at Illini Central, I'd never been a part of one of them here. And so, yeah, maybe in some way in my, again,
it'd have been enough for you.
Again, not taking right. Not
been enough for the community. I mean, had they stopped?
Some of them, yeah, I think so. I think everybody was on board. You know how winning, winning is a great medicine.
Sure
it changes everything. Yeah,
peasants with the pitchforks.
Yeah, people don't. And rightfully so. And I think we were in a good place.
Yeah,
but you've been beaten. Basketball's but different than football. You'd beat. And I wasn't sure.
And you're going to their place?
No, we're going to a region. We're going to a neutral site. Okay. But I mean, and I'm not being negative. And when boys, you're listening to this, I mean, I believed in you, but like my dad always said, the important stuff comes after the but.
Yeah.
We had lost 2 games from 3-10, and they were one of them.
Right.
And
right.
Kind of didn't beat us by 30. But just kind of executed down the stretch to the point you're like, I don't know, maybe we can't beat them. So, and one thing I am good at is I remember everything. And I remember being in that gym before the game, and their guys weren't screwing around beforehand, but it was obvious that they weren't really concerned about us. They'd beaten us. They're still teenagers. They'd beaten us 4 straight times. Mm-hmm. And I know for a fact their student section, from watching them, they thought they were at a celebration, not a game. Mm-hmm. We've beaten you before. We're going to beat you again.
Yeah. And it just felt like a party for them.
Yeah. And I didn't see anything from our guys that thought that we were afraid of them or nothing. It wasn't that. It was just on their side of it, from what I was seeing, not too worried about it. And it's funny, when I posted the other night the link to the game, when I put it on the Sports Network, I got a message from one of the boys who was a junior that year and reminded me of something where there was someone from Illini Central who grew up here that worked at that school, and they were sure at that school they were going to Peoria. Like it was a done deal. They were that good. And they knew they were going to be 1A. Their losses, and again, I looked on Max Preps, their losses were 2A losses. Mm-hmm. Probably
so they had championship aspirations.
Absolutely. And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. And we'd beat you 4 times in a row. So we're probably gonna beat you.
Right.
And I'm sure their coach believed that too. I had actually coached against him when he was younger. He's a lot younger than you and I, but he was a coach at Macomb when I was coaching at home for South Fulton, and confident that he was going to win that. They were going to win that game, I'm sure. So the game starts, and it's really back and forth. I remember in my head as being more up and down, because one of the things that sticks out to me is I grabbed Coach Geezer by the coat, either like at a timeout or while the game's going on. And this is why I love him, and I loved coaching with him, and I loved our relationship, and I loved the fact that I wasn't afraid to tell him what I thought.
Yeah.
I was his assistant, and I was coaching the game from my seat. And my job was to tell him what I thought. And his job was to either say, you're crazy, I'm going to do what I want to do, or at least trust that I'm trying to think of what we should be doing that would help us out. So I grab him, and those of you who don't know, two of our guards were Jared Entwistle and Jordan Bradshaw. They were kind of the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. Jordan's the best defensive player ever been around. Jared's best point guard ever been around.
Are they juniors or seniors?
They're juniors at the time.
They're juniors. They're part of the 7th grade state championship.
Right, 7th grade state championship. Yep. And the way the game's going, I was like, one of them's going to have to sit down for just a minute. Like, we're at the pace, you're asking Jordan to guard this all-state kid who's lit us up before. I know at least one time put up 35 against us. You got to give him a break. And Jared's running the show, and Jared's not shooting very well either. If I remember right, his dad and I have talked about this. Jim talked about this story a million times, laugh about it. It might have been 2 for 10 in the first half. I'm thinking, we got to give him a break. So I grab John, and he looks at me, and he's like, I'm not taking either one of them out of this game at all. And turns back around. And if you knew Coach Giesler, it was a stern way. And he wasn't probably old enough necessarily at that time. I mean, if he would have had me maybe when he was young, but he's like more of a father figure than he was like you and me coaching together a year apart. Or I coach with a friend of mine who's quite a bit younger than you and I are. And it's different being his assistant, because I'm like, you need to listen to me because I'm older than you.
Yeah, because I know what I'm talking about.
Right, I know what I'm talking about. And I've been a varsity coach too. But with John, I never felt that way. But I do remember I sat down and I thought, you know what? If we lose this game, I'm not going to tell him, but I'm going to know that he should have listened to me, because I thought we were going to run out of gas. And he didn't. And it worked out, but he didn't take him out. And the game really kind of just goes back and forth. And it's one of those that, I remember you saying this about the Oregon game, that the things that we don't remember sometimes are the score. Like, you think you know what it was.
Right.
Like, I thought we were down by 15, and we probably weren't. We were probably down more 10. But 10 against a good team that's beaten you 4 times
is a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you're having to really work to get stops and things like that.
Yeah. You're not going to rattle off 10 quick
Like,
points
you
on
didn't
the
go in
press
at the half.
against
You weren't down 15 or 20, but you felt like you weren't playing great. And you weren't sure if you had another gear. Because, again, you had beaten a bunch of teams from 3-10 to here, but you hadn't beaten anybody that was great.
Right.
That was great. So I remember going to the second half thinking, I don't know. And the second half starts, and I'm still feeling like that. And then, like I said, the title of this, I just kind of had the feeling mid-third. I'm like, well, it was fun while it lasted. Like you said, we won a regional. We turned it around. There's always next year kind of thing,
right.
And then something happened within the game that I think Coach Giesler knew before he passed away. I think we danced around it in conversation. And this is where I love him, because in this one single play, or around this time, there was a kid in the game who was one of the other seniors, who I love this part of drawing it up in the dirt. We had a kid named Seth Kirby, who was one of the seniors. Seth was a tiny freshman. Like, he was little. And then he just, one of those people that just like grew really, a bunch. But when he was little, he didn't think he wanted to keep playing. So he quit. Well, Coach Giesler had a rule in the olden days, 10 years ago. His rule was, you quit, you're done. If you're a freshman and you quit, you're not allowed to ever play again. He won't let you play again. I mean, probably not going to get away with that today. I don't think we've softened up so much, but he wasn't going to get a play. So in between his junior and senior year, that summer before the season we're talking about, we had open gym, and he would still come to him because he's still friends with those guys, and coach wasn't there. And we sat on the stage after everybody else was left, and he goes, I really want to play bad. What do you think there's any chance to change his mind? I'm like, I'm going to be honest, Seth. Coach Giesler don't change his mind very often. And, but I said, I'll talk to him. I was always good with Coach in terms of,
if anybody could get him to change his mind.
Right. And I would try to present it. His son, Coach Giesler's son, Lance, and I, who I need to have on here sometime, he and I we always laugh at, if we could convince his dad that if something was his idea, we might get it by it. We might be able to get it by him. Like, if we try to convince him, playing zone wasn't one of those things, but we could convince him of something. So anyway, I brought it up to him, and he's like, he really didn't like the idea, but he's like, well, here's the thing. I'm going to tell him that there's no way he plays until after Christmas. And he shows one bit of displeasure in not playing or being a baby or whatever, and I'll never play him. And
good compromise.
Right. And I went to Seth and I was like, you have to, and remember, I'm talking about a kid who's a dad and is a husband, and was in the military. And we went through a lot of different things together. But at 17, you're not playing and you're getting beat by Manuel by 60 and he won't put you into that game, and you're getting beat by so-and-so and he won't put you into that game, and you're beating so-and-so by 30 and he won't put you into that game.
Yep.
It's pretty easy to say at the beginning, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And I won't be a baby. You're 17. You're probably going to be a baby.
And a month flies for people at our age. But when you're that age,
it doesn't.
Thanksgiving to Christmas is a long time.
Right.
Your senior year.
Yeah. And it's funny because, and the reason I bring that up is because that's one of those things that I love from that night, because Seth had a couple of big plays in that game that maybe not.
Right.
Yeah, maybe not. And a contrarian could say, well, maybe somebody else would have made it. I don't know. They didn't. I know Seth did. And I know Coach trusted Seth in a sectional final semifinal game, in the semifinal game, to put him in there and to make a play. Mm-hmm. Well, around that same time when Seth would have been in the game, Jared drives to the basket. They call foul, but they don't call on a shot. They call it on the floor. And Jared doesn't like it. And Jared goes to the ref. I mean, he's not like grandstanding or anything. He goes to the ref and he's mad. And Jared comes by the bench. And if Jared listens to this, he was being a baby. I mean, he was doing what
you don't have to be scared. We don't have to play Jared in basketball.
Right. I don't have to sub him. He doesn't play on the girls team, so I don't have to play him. But he was. And I mean, it might have been the wrong call, but whatever. And in the moment, I didn't know about what happened, but I know that from that moment on, Jared scores 27 points in the second half. And we're talking like early third, second half of the third quarter, all of the fourth, he puts up 27
in like 13 minutes.
Yes. He eviscerates them. And it was and you could tell, I mean, I've known him since he was a little boy, and it was just like,
he hit a switch.
Yeah. Somebody said the wrong thing. I didn't know who at the time, but it was just all of a sudden, I mean, threes in guys' faces. One of the thing now where if anybody crosses somebody and the kid falls down, it's, back then you didn't really do it necessarily, but he crossed somebody, they fell down. I mean, it went nuts. And that's a big part of, you make a run and you come back and you get into that game. But also down the stretch, and I have to clarify, my job as the JV coach, one of the things, it would have happened with you, but it wouldn't have happened with me when we were kids. If I was the JV coach to a senior age Tony Wherley and a junior age Jerry Butcher, Tony Wherley would have never asked Coach Wherley to do what Jerry Butcher would have done, because my thing on the bench was guys would come out, starters, sixth man, seventh man, maybe eighth man, and they would say to me, they grab me, but they would make sure Coach didn't hear it. They grab me and they, Wherley, get me back in the game. Get me back in the game. Mm-hmm. And I would say, Coach, hey, Coach, Zach's ready. Coach Duncan's ready. Coach Khan's ready. Coach Grant's ready. Justin's ready. I'd at least say it. I mean, whether he wanted to put him in or not, that was on him.
Yeah.
But I would say, hey, so-and-so's ready. And it happened every night, every night.
Yeah.
The reason why I say I wouldn't have done it, because I knew that Coach I wasn't going to get put in, but you, sixth, seventh, eighth man on that team, you might have gotten in if it clicked in the head of Trevor or whatever, maybe to put you in. So anyway, that's funny to me because our sixth, seventh man on the team, he gets put in later in the game, Duncan McClure, who was a huge part, clearly, of why we won the state championship a year later. And Duncan, some nights he'd play a lot, some nights he wouldn't play as much. And that night he goes in and just kills it. He does things that he's never done before. Like the moment somehow didn't envelop him and make him drown. He broke out.
Just thrived in it.
Yeah. There was a play where, and I was skimming through it the other night, Jordan Bradshaw goes and gets a steal and throws it over his shoulder. Like he's falling out of bounds, throws it over his shoulder. It goes right to Duncan. Duncan is the center on the court, takes off dribbling, and we're all, no, what are you doing? And not only does he keep going, he hesitation. It's in his left hand, by the way. A left-handed full speed dribble, hesitates against one of the two all-staters, and then speeds back up and makes a layup. It's the epitome of the no, yes. Oh,
Yep.
And he just is making plays down the stretch, and he's in more minutes than he normally would have been in, especially in the fourth quarter, especially in a sectional semifinal game.
Right.
And he's blocked shots. I can remember there was a pass that Justin Unken threw him, just this amazing whip pass that I see every time I see it. It's just crazy he just played lights out. He's playing in the place of a senior who I love with all of my heart. He is one of my favorite people ever. And in the middle of this, I'm not stupid. I'm dumb, but I'm not stupid. I'm sitting there thinking, you're a senior. This could be your last game. What better time to grab me by the arm and go, Wherley, and look me in the eye and go, Wherley, get me back in the game now. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there to myself, Zach sitting 2 people away from me. And I'm like, God, please don't make him ask me. Because I'm going to have to look him in the eye and go, not tonight.
Yeah.
Because Duncan was playing too well. And it wasn't because he wouldn't have gone in and played great, but you don't do that.
Right.
Basketball's different. You don't do that. Because I've done it before when you shouldn't have. Or I've seen people do it. They're like, well, got to go back to my starters.
No, you don't.
The season's over.
Right.
Like, I've talked to recently. It's not analytics. I'm sorry, but I know that's the thing now, but you got to go off of what's going now. And he never once grabbed my arm. He was cheering. He was the biggest cheerleader on the bench. And as the game comes down the stretch, and he's still on the bench, and I don't know, maybe he got in at the end, but I'll never forget we were shooting free throws to kind of help ice it. And he grabs all of us. He's like, lock arms. We never did that. We never locked arms. We never sat on the bench with our arms locked. That wasn't something we did. But we did it because Zach said to. And it was like, that's the selfless kind of thing. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff, that's life stuff. I'll stay late at work because you need me to do it, boss. That's what do we need to get done? What do we need to do now? What needs to be done? Oh, I need to not get a bunch of attention. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not going to get paid to do this. Well, yeah, you are in a way because we're going to win. We're going to get paid. You just might not get paid the way that you want to get paid. And in that moment, I will never forget him not doing that because I don't know if I would have done that. I'm a senior.
Right.
And I'm not in the game.
Yeah.
He took his ego all year long with this group of kids that were younger than him and put it in his back pocket and was a great leader. And I don't know if everyone would have thought he would have done it. I believe he did it. It didn't surprise me because I know that kid's heart. But in that moment, I want to be in there.
Right.
I want to be getting that rebound. I want to be the one taking off on a left-handed dribble, full speed, hesitation, go up and finish it. And I'll never forget that moment. I can see it when I close my eyes. He sat right there and did what was best for us. And it's funny to think from 3 and 9, he was a huge part of that. That day that we went on the 3-hour trip, not Gilligan's Island, but we went on that trip and he was a huge part of it. Just a leader. It wasn't all about him, kind of like one of my other podcasts. Because it would have been all about him if he would have grabbed me and said, get me back in the game. Are you going to get me back in the game? And I don't know if I would have, I don't know. John could have looked at me and like, no, not now.
Right.
But he didn't even put me in that spot. And maybe 17 or 18-year-old at the time, who knows him, didn't really think about it. But it made me not have to look at this person I love and say, not right now.
Yeah, I'm not putting you in right now.
I'm not even going to bring it up. We got to get this game. We got to get this game.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so you go on from there.
So anyway, the fourth quarter, like we ended up like winning. I don't know what the final was. I mean, we didn't like blow them out, but it wasn't. It was between 10 and 8. Like it wasn't a nail biter or whatever. Jared's explosion, they couldn't recover from it. I mean, it was just insane. I mean, the last 3 that he hit was right in front of our bench. He hit 2 threes in like a stretch of like about a minute that were insane. I mean, obviously they were starting to get on him when you're on fire like that. And he shoots one right in front of our bench. And I won't repeat what he said when he turned around, but he hits it and turns towards our crowd. It's almost like a Steph Curry one where he turns before it even goes in and just pumps his fist to the crowd and they just go nuts. Where we had the camera set up, it was a bad spot because you see it go in and you see him turn and then it's just nothing but our fans. And it was just insane.
So are you going to tell what Coach Giesler said to him that set him off?
Well,
or can you tell that part?
Yeah, I can. Because it's funny so the next day, we obviously go on to win the game and we've advanced to the sectional final that Friday. So the next day in practice, we always do a free throw shooting drill, or John used to always do a free throw shooting drill. And I walk over by him. It's one of those where everybody's shooting at the same time. I walk over, I'm like, all right, what happened? Because I teach middle school, so I haven't been around him all day. So this is the first time we've had a chance to talk. And I said to him, like, okay, what happened? What got you going? Somebody say something to you? And he looks at me and he goes, yeah. I go, well, who? Who said something to you? I said, was there a crowd saying stuff? No. Free throw. I'm like, one of their players? Because surely they knew better. Because, I mean, they're good. Right. They know because they're the kind of players that would be bad to do to them. I'm like, one of their players say something to you? No. Free throw. I'm like, well, then who said I didn't say nothing to you? And your teammates, there's kind of was a pecking order with that team. There's probably nobody on that team that would have necessarily said, let's go. And he goes, Coach Giesler, he told me to quit being a whiny baby. I wasn't whining. And I just start to laugh and I turn and walk away.
And he's probably still mad about it.
And still mad about it. Yeah.
Still mad
and still would
Coach Giesler called him a whiner.
As a 30-year-old or whatever he is now, he would be like, yeah, Coach Giesler was wrong. I wasn't whiny baby. And it's so funny that those moments, like as a coach, John wasn't trying to light a fire under him. He might tell you that if he's sitting here, but he wasn't. He was mad in the moment because Jared was being a baby about not getting called a foul on the shot. So
it wasn't something he purposely did, hoping to get his motor going.
And I think
Coach Giesler being Coach Giesler.
And me being playing both sides, I remember talking to him, and I don't think I'm just sure that maybe later on we talked about it after, years down the road, but in the moment, he definitely did not realize that he is the reason that Jared torched them for 27 in the second half, when he just eviscerated them.
Yep.
A good team being guarded by a good player, but he was that kind of kid. The first time I ever saw him play as a fourth grader.
As we talked last time, you said winning is precious.
Yeah.
All these little things have to happen.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get a bad call on him, and he's frustrated, just say he shoots better, but not great.
You still lose.
He doesn't go off for 27 in the last 13 minutes. If they don't make a call and he doesn't show his frustration, he doesn't go off.
Yeah. And if Duncan, for whatever reason, is oblivious to the moment and is nervous, like, I don't think I can do this. Because there were times throughout the season, that Williamsville game that night, when I said it was really bad and, it was hitting the fan, for lack of a better way to saying it. I remember him coming out of the game that night. He was mad. He'd been in there for a short period of time, didn't get to play very long, and gets jerked right back out and comes over. And I have such a good relationship with all these kids that sometimes they say things to me that they probably shouldn't. And they're not bad, but like, I'm glad they do, because their life thing, they need to say it to me so then I can put them in their place without I can be me and do it.
Right.
And he comes out of the game and he's like, so-and-so makes one mistake. And then they get to keep playing and I make a mistake and I come right back out. It's like he was at that place off and on throughout the year because he wasn't starting and he would get frustrated. And that night, there was no fear of screwing up. He just went in and played. And it wasn't like that night was any different. But if he doesn't play the way he plays, we don't win. We don't win. I mean,
if Coach Kiesler doesn't let that senior play that quit when he was a freshman.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if someone's listening to this, they'll go, well, Seth didn't do. No, I know he didn't. I'm not saying that he scored 20. I'm saying at one moment in that game, he got a big rebound and a putback and went to the line. I mean, he was a part. And again, and this is how it was funny. I said Max Preps. I went back and looked at the season that you beat Oregon because it's on there. And you can see, you go look at those scores just to circle back to yours. There's like 4 games on there where someone didn't even score against you. Like I didn't do the math, but like you won a game 77-6 and you won another one 55-0. Like Seth's thing is Seth is in practice every day making somebody better that helps that team be better. Like I'm not talking that night. I'm not talking February 28th, 2012. I'm talking every night in practice from that moment, rewind back to the beginning of the season where he's 6'3" going up against another 6'3" person that's making them better. If he's working a job at Ponderosa, he's not helping that team be better.
Right.
He's not making us better.
Yeah.
And Coach Giesler not sticking to his guns.
And I know in the last episode I told that story about Sir not playing his sophomore year, D1 athlete, and you said, I hope everybody's listening, and that's, you stick to your guns and that's how you do it. And here we are going on the other side of it saying, we got a coach that's old school and he's got his rules and you talk him into breaking those rules and we're behind that. And it's not that we're all over the place. It's that if you don't, as a coach, you don't learn sometime in your career that you're going to have to compromise some things just to meet people where they're at, quit it, and not expect everyone to come to where you think they should be. If you don't have that ability to go to kids where they are, you can't coach successfully in a small town.
And especially in 2024.
Absolutely.
Like we're talking 10 years ago, it's a lot different.
It
We're
is.
talking 11 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, 100%.
But there's some people that are going to dig their heels in and go, nope, you do it. It's my way or the highway. And you just can't, I don't know.
And I think you can have core things.
Yes.
Like core things. But for the most part, I understand why he had that rule, and it's true. Like we had enough kids. It's commitment, and his thing, and he was right. I believe him. Playing is hard. Quitting is easy. Being on the team is hard. It's hard to be on the team, whether you get to play all the time or whether you don't. It's a commitment. Commitment isn't I do it when I want to. And he and I used to always say it too. It's want to. How bad do you want to do it? Don't complain, and he was frustrated when kids quit, and Seth shouldn't have quit.
Right.
But by the same token,
what's that? I mean, how much does a kid change from his freshman year to his senior year? Why do you hold something against a kid who you don't know what he's going through? You don't know what his family life, all these things, whatever it is. And maybe he was just quit because he's a whiner, but he grew up.
Right.
And so, people grow up and people change.
He probably quit because he was small. I was thinking about it when I started to talk about this. If I showed you a picture of him as a freshman, we went to the U of I camp and his team got beat 73-6 or something, or 76-3. And then what he looked like when he was a senior, you wouldn't even know. He's like almost double the size. It's just funny how much he'd grown. That's obviously an exaggeration, but he just wanted to be a part of it. And here's the thing. He didn't know we were going to Peoria.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest.
He didn't know we were going that far.
Let's be honest. I mean, it wasn't like he jumped onto a team that had already started. He didn't come to the team on regional championship night. He came to us at the beginning of the season and went through all of it. That's what's funny is some people will jump on when the bandwagon's headed in the right direction.
Right.
Other people, he just wanted to be a part of the team again and be able to play. And again, if you're listening to this and I don't know why I have to qualify it, but I'm not saying he won the game for us, but it's just one of those parts of that night that stuck out to me is here's this person that wouldn't have been in on that if that hadn't happened.
He has a part of that now for the rest of his life that
Yeah. And
can't be taken away.
And it was just such a great group of kids. I think that's the thing that when I get choked up thinking about it, not like this minute, but when I look back and the other night when I was looking back, like that group of guys hung together, like through all of it, like such a great group of kids. And I just, I don't know. Groups aren't like that anymore necessarily. They were friends, like those guys in contact with each other all the time. When we won the state championship a year later, Seth was overseas, like the guys that won it, like this one's for Seth. Like I remember standing out in the foyer and they're like, wish Seth was in this picture because Dylan, one of the other seniors that didn't play, he ended up like working after he graduated, but managing for us, like coming to games, and not like a manager, like I'm not judging managers, but like he's out of high school, a guy that we could count on for everything. Like it was like having another assistant coach. And Zach was there when we won it, and when we went to take the pictures, like we're again out in the foyer there after they kicked us out of the gym in Peoria. Zach's there, and Dylan's obviously with us. And the boys are like, get in the picture. You're in the picture with us. It was almost like we didn't get it done. We didn't get it done last year like we wanted to, but you're still a part of this. And because I remember Zach, the kid that I was afraid was going to beg me to get him back in. He's like, no. This is you guys. I'm like, no, you're with us.
Yeah.
And
that's
I had
awesome.
that picture upstairs. Yeah. It was they're kids. And I think from what you do, and I know from my experience, give me a teenager, man.
Yeah.
Don't give me an adult. Give me a teenager. I know they do things that make us mad and whatever, but like they weren't faking getting them in that picture. It was, they need to be in here with us, even though they were in street clothes. They weren't.
We know what it's like to have friends that are like family.
Right. And that's what those guys were.
Yeah, it feels, when it all comes together, it just makes you happy for them when you see people that have the chance, the opportunity to be happy the rest of their life, be friends like we are, and always be able to, I don't know.
And, at the end of yours, we talked about, I mentioned, tried to mention the life lesson of the drawing it up in the dirt and that. I think the thing about this story, how it's that is similar to that one is it's early in the third, I was like, it's not our day. It was fun. We turned it around, but here's where it ends. And it wasn't like I didn't keep doing my job. It's just funny how it's why you gotta keep battling. You gotta hang in. You got to, and hope somebody calls you a whiny baby.
Yeah.
and then you decide that you're going to go scorched earth on somebody.
Yeah.
You've got it, but you do, you have to believe. And we're recording this again a week after our boys lost. And I'm really close to a lot of those kids, lost their regional championship game, the first regional championship game we played in since we won the state championship. And, I told them, you're playing a great team, somebody that has a chance to go win the state championship. You might play them 100 times and you might not beat them once, but you can control whether you play as hard as you possibly can so that when you walk off that court after the game, regardless of the score, you did everything you possibly could do. And if you can do that, it'll be fine. And they did that. I was so proud of them because it's, and if we would have lost that game that night, if Jared hadn't gone crazy, we did a great job. We hung together when it would have been easy to just make it miserable. Because we've both been around teams where things kind of got miserable, where, for whatever reason,
if you can't find a way to pull it back together,
right?
It's a miserable.
You can't wait for it to be over.
Yeah.
And that's terrible.
Yep.
And that's coming from two people who love kids and love kids.
Yeah.
And I've coached kids before when they were not in a good place, they'd ruin a practice and they'd ruin a game, and they'd ruin a week, and they might ruin a month. And, because they weren't buying into what everybody else was hopefully buying into. And that team did that in the face of because that night in Williamsville, it was bad. And I didn't even know about the other stuff. It was bad. Like you could just feel it. Like this is going sideways real quick. And then we went on a trip and it was better.
It sure wouldn't be as good a story, and it's not as satisfying if you don't go through the failures and the losses.
Yeah,
it's from one of our favorite movies growing up. Nobody thinks you can do it is the first 7 words of every great success story.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It was, and then you didn't end up winning the state championship, but you got third and you did things. You made memories that. I was talking about him this week. There was things that we did that people don't even know. It's like, and then I can see in the window over your shoulder, the girls state champion or the girls state championship game on the TV. There's things that from football that are different when you go to the state championship. There's things different when you went to Peoria, things that I had never thought of that, we could get into in another time, another one of these, but yeah, it's the memories. It wasn't the basketball, and I don't even, honestly, the Oregon story for me, I don't not speak for you, but the things that you've texted me, it ain't football. It's the other stuff.
Yeah.
It's the life stuff. It's the relationship stuff. When I get together with those boys, when some of them come over to my house this summer and we have steak tacos, or I make them pizza and, we drink beer in my pool, we ain't talking about this shot or that shot. We're talking about the other memories we made together. And that's what counts. And I feel sorry for and pity the people that don't understand that.
We'll continue to say that.
Yeah, forever. As long as I'm alive, I'll say it.
Yep.
So that's it. That's the sectional semifinal game against Sangamon Valley. I posted it the other day on Facebook and Instagram, and I said I would do a podcast about it soon. I'm pretty sure I didn't forget anything.
Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for taking me through that story.
Yeah, it was some great memories from that night. And I'm sure for you in November, you have it like it's a streak, like you go through that run. Like your Facebook, I don't know if it's like mine, but like last night was a huge win. A year later, like last night, I wrote a blog post that got read 1,000 times, which is a lot. And
I wish I did social media as much as you.
Yeah. And
back then, because then I would have this stuff pop up.
Yeah.
But I just didn't.
Because it's funny, because then you'll see that and you'll be like, oh, I didn't realize that was tonight. But yeah, like last night was on the run part 2. Last night was a big night. And I remember I was glad I wrote. 1,000 people read that like in just a handful of days. And I was like, wait a minute, what? It was like, and there were so many stories from that night, and that's another episode maybe, because some people would rather listen than read it. But anyway, so thanks for sitting down with me on this one, kind of similar to yours. If you were a part of that, or if you weren't and you've listened to it, I hope you enjoyed it. I can't see how long this has been. I know sometimes you see the length of them and you're like, I don't know if I want to. Just pause it. Just go back to it, because you hope that maybe somehow you can relate it to your own life, because that's really, Jerry and I've made a living of trying to help other people get through whatever they're going through and make life a little bit better. So hopefully that story make you not look out on the court and think, it's over. It's nice while it lasted. But thanks again for setting in. We'll be doing another one of these soon. Don't ever forget, your life is good.